Hey guys, welcome to my channel. My name is ReadingBear and I hope you are ready for some more stories. And today, we will take a look at some new malicious compliance content. If you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comment. And now, let's dive right into the stories.
First one is titled, Use the law to withhold my deposit. Well, okay. Here we go. This was a few years ago, so some of the details are a little fuzzy, but I smile every time I think about this. I moved to California in 2010 and had lined up a house on a 3-acre property with a nice-sized detached barn. We were on a rent-to-own to allow time to get settled and secure the loan to buy the property. So we had a standard California rental agreement. With the handshake agreement, it would not be needed once we purchased the house. A couple little things to fill in. The female owner was a realtor, so there was a reasonable expectation she knew what she was doing. The husband was weird. I cannot explain it past that. But part of the agreement was we actually bought the horse that was boarded on the property, and also, they had the detached barn full of their old crap, with the agreement that it would be removed by the owners once we purchased. So, we move in, things are going fairly well. We have several cats at the time, but keep the house cleaned up, and we had one cat prone to accidents, but for the most part, we kept everything good. Sometime during the winter, we have an issue with the septic system. The owner proceeds to let it slip the septic was not put in legally and was not correct. Okay, they still paid for the repairs. A month or so later, a water line the husband installed to use for watering the horse broke, and again, find out it was not done correctly. This time, I was forced to pay for it. Okay, cool. Once I found out about the septic, I started looking for other houses and found one available, and we were able to get it. At this point, I give the owner about 2 months' notice. We had done some improvements on the property, including a tack shed for all the horse gear. My stepdaughter loved horses, and the horse was hers. So almost immediately, the owner's attitude changes, and I realize we are in for a long 2 months. We are slowly moving into the new house as we have time. During this time, the owner was randomly showing up without 24 hours notice, called law, attempting to show the house with zero warning, and the best one, she started inspecting the house before we were even moved out. At this point, we were about 75% moved. The new house was on 12.1/2 acres, and we did not have a pen to put the horse and goats into. One day, I get home from work, and we have to call a vet out. Owner's daughter, who used to own the horse, decided to give the horse and our 2 goats a year's worth of glucosamine supplements for the horse. We ended up with a several $100 vet bill. So, we sped things up and ended up clearing a few weeks early. Because of this, there were a few odds and ends left behind, including a wooden run-to for the goats. I spent about $500 on cleaning alone to make sure we got our deposit back. I'd even brought in a professional cleaning service to finish the house up. I spent many times moving from base, housing while military, this is common, so we complete the final walkthrough with the owner, and she seems happy. She says she will figure everything out and send me a check. Okay, cool. About 4 weeks after the original move-out date, I get a large manila envelope in the mail from the owner. Strange, but okay, cool. I open it, and she is trying to charge me in the neighborhood of $2,500.00 on top of the $2,000.00 deposit she is keeping. Okay, lady, let's see what you got. In the envelope is about 10 small mailer envelopes, and about 300-ish pictures of various things on the property and in the house, along with a 6-page letter outlining what I owe her for. So, I start reading, couple hundred for trash removal, including a list of items removed, and a receipt for removal, several hundred for paint. During the walkthrough, I offered to paint the rooms we had painted. One was an obnoxious cotton candy pink, and the owner said no, it was fine. There is also a charge for close to $3,000.00 for brand new carpeting and high-end padding from Lowe's, as well as the receipt, and also an itemized charge for labor. I believe there were a few other items, but I don't have the paperwork in front of me. Now, my first reaction was pure rage. I was seeing red. I wrote the nastiest letter to her 3 different times and took a step back. She had threatened to take me to court. Cue malicious compliance. I pull up California rental laws, and at the time, there was a great website that explained what an owner could legally charge you for. So I sat down, and I believe the entire letter I responded to her with was around 15 pages. The highlights: I was not responsible for the painting or labor associated with, as I provided the final inspection that did not note any issues with paint color. I was not responsible for the trash removal, as she listed one item that was ours, the plywood run to in the field, and the items actually listed were all her personal items removed from the detached barn, and it was not my responsibility. I was not responsible for paying the emergency plumbing repair mentioned earlier, and I provided the bill and the fact it was an emergency, as it was flooding over half the property and making entrance to the property impossible. The best one was the last one, the carpets. So in her letter, she mentioned a horrible smell of cat urine, which she proceeds to explain occurred during the illegal inspections. She also had provided documentation on the cost of materials, including all her purchases. The best part, they were all dated prior to our final walkthrough. No matter the result, she was replacing that carpet. So, California law is very specific on what the owner can charge for carpets. At the final walkthrough, she was okay with the carpets, but then changed her mind a few days later. So I explained, to the letter, that I was responsible for roughly 1/30th of the cost of replacement, as she graciously showed me the 10-year-old carpet was good for 30 years. So due to the fact it was normal wear and tear, I agreed to cover that portion. It was only a couple hundred. Now in her letter, she threatened legal action as well. So I put everything together, including a final breakdown of what was owed to her and what was owed to me, and it was close to $1,500.00. I also informed her I was ready to take the case to court if she didn't agree with me, as that was the next legal step. About a month later, she had 30 days to respond. I get a check for $1,250.00 and a short note saying she expected this issue was considered resolved. I have never smiled so much cashing a check. Next one is titled, Tractor or Tractor Trailer. There is a young man in the neighborhood that lives with his folks. He is a great mechanic. He loves older trucks and other weird vehicles. He and his buddy are always working on something and help others fixing cars, lawnmowers, etc. Just a really cool kid. He also has this really cool older John Deere tractor. He can be seen driving it around the neighborhood occasionally. He will give kids rides on it and helps out at the local community animal park. He parks the tractor in the street on the side of his house. It's really only about the size of a full-size truck. Well, his neighbor across the street decides they don't like it and call the cops. They come out and say he can't park it on the street as it isn't legal. So he parks it on his lawn for a while. Then one day he shows up with this massive flatbed trailer and parks it in the same place on the street. It is 2.5 times the length of the tractor and almost twice as wide. It's 4 feet off the ground with a built-in retractable ramp. He plops the tractor on it and over time adds a bunch of other stuff. Tires, cooler, wood, whatever engine he is currently working on. The trailer is fully licensed and parking it on the street is perfectly legal. Next one is titled, A Vow of Silence. This story takes place at a well-known fast food chain about 2.5 years ago. I'm a 20-year male at the time, landing this glorious position as a burger flipper after some time in the military. Took an arrow to the knee, where I learned to reinforce my already magnificent tendencies to apply rules and orders by the letter. The work in itself wasn't pleasing nor glorifying, but it came with free meals, good friends, and a lot of funny stories, and not so funny ones. So here I was, on the line of duty, putting buns to heat and making burgers. A good friend of mine on the other line, right in front of me, doing her part to serve. It was a slow day, so we had time to chat around, make jokes, and overall, just having a good time while obliterating the serving timers. In comes the loved/hated manager, which we will call Coral. She was nice to some, and a real witch to others, and to me especially. I still don't know why, since she blessed her son with the same name I bear. She didn't like that we were talking sense, it bothers the customers, and told us to, and I quote, stop making a single noise or I'll write you up. Now, for those who have work or know how a fast food chain cooking line works, you know. For those who doesn't, let me explain briefly. We literally have to shout when we finish a plate of anything, and by shout, I mean shout, and the receiver shouts back. So, my friend and I looked at each other, then at the coworkers down the line, and we didn't make a single noise. Now the serving times bumped up from 35 seconds to 3 minutes because of empty plates of various kind. So naturally Coral comes to us and shout, WTF, are you all doing to be this slow? We all stopped, looked at her, and no one spoke. To this day, we call this incident the Vow of Silence. Edit, I forgot the font. And for clarity to what fat food chain it was, we'll call it Whack Wild. She eventually talked about this to our general manager and tried to write us up for negligence or something like that. But turns out that GM saw everything unfold and basically told her to stop giving stupid orders if she didn't want stupid situations. But GM, being what he is and mostly thinking about stats and profit before all, he still scolded us like children. After that, Coral tried her best to be the meanest manager ever, giving dumb chores, complaining about how we'd done them, and petty stuff like that. I quit for another job in another city not long after, and I heard a few weeks ago that her and another manager got fired for harassment. Next one is titled, "Well, it has to be done properly, doesn't it?" Hi all, I work as a firefighter in a large city fire service in the UK. I won't name it, but it's a big metropolitan area. A few years ago, when I was working in another station from my current one, we all had a watch commander, is it lieutenant in the USA, who was a complete prick. We'll call him Gov, as in the UK fire service, all the managers are called that short for governor, which is a fire service tradition. He'd had a big argument with the whole watch the day before after we'd caught him out lying to us, long story, which ended with him telling us to all go duck yourselves and storming out the room. The next day we had to do a fire inspection visit at a large self-storage facility, which is basically for us to check that the fire safety rules of places are being adhered to and that we know where all the hydrants are and that we have the right contact details, etc. Normally Gov would come in with us too, but he was still in a foul mood and stayed on the fire engine while we all went in. The last thing he said was, "Just be quick as I've got so much office work to do." Well, once inside we asked to staff there to unlock each storage unit, and we checked almost everyone in there, and there were loads of them in there. Even the storage unit manager looked surprised and said, "It's never taken this long before." Normally just a quick look overall would do, but not today, we all though. When we got outside, Gov was furious and asked why it had taken so long. We simply explained that we were doing our job properly and asked him if he wanted us to cut corners with regards to fire safety. He obviously couldn't say yes to this, so just sulked and said nothing. He ended up working late that day to catch up with his office work, unpaid overtime, while we all went down the pub. We made sure to wave at him as we all left the building. Moral of the story: don't duck with the watch, as there's more of us than there is of you. Next one is titled, "I Demand to See the Manager." In the early 90s, I was made redundant from a large telecom company with a very generous payout. This allowed my wife and I to buy a florist shop. She was a trained florist, which has staff including a manager. I got another job in IT, but used to help out in the shop on Saturdays as I enjoyed the work. One Saturday afternoon, just before closing time, an irate man came in complaining his flowers had been delivered late for his wife's birthday. I was the only one in the shop. The other two staff were busy out the back cleaning up and getting ready to close. I found the order and it had a note on it saying, "Deliver after 10 a.m. It had been delivered at 11:10. I told him that it mal quite reasonable that we had delivered it then, as it was after 10 and no other stipulation had been made, so I felt his complaint was unjustified. He got quite aggressive and demanded to see the manager. So, grinning to myself, I went out the back and got her, staying out back myself to assist with clearing up. I could hear the guy trying to demand a refund. My manager told him it would have to be authorized by the owner. His face was a picture when she called me, and I came back out. Last one is titled, "Fine, I won't use headphones." This won't be as exciting as a lot of the other stuff that happens on this subreddit. I'm an employee at a super Target and I work general merchandise. Basically, I just stock shelves. Recently, because of Christmas coming up, we've had all hands on deck for toys, so I've been spending my time in the back room all shift, which means I don't really encounter guests, so we're allowed to listen to music. But technically, it is against the rules to use headphones. Well, I didn't want to force the people around me to listen to Sunday football, so I put just some generic wired Apple ear pods in anyway. Well, someone around me took personal offense to this and reported me to my team lead. He came up to me and told me, "I noticed you were using headphones and I didn't care, so I let you keep using them, but somebody has complained, so I need you to take them out." Well, instead of just turning off the radio, I did what was allowed and just put it on speaker at full volume. Well, this quickly showed who had taken issue with my headphone, whereas the electronics team member next to me has been giving me dirty looks all day. I saw him try and talk to the manager and gathered he was talking about me as he kept looking in my direction. But my team lead brushed it off and now he's forced to listen to the Packer game for the rest of the day, which feels like a win to me. I've never understood employees who go out of their way to report other employees for doing stuff that doesn't hurt anyone, But I've lost nothing from this interaction. I was just trying to be considerate of those around me, but apparently, I was in the wrong. Thanks for listening.